Hello, hello, and how is it going? Borderline podcast Disortarians. Have you had a nice week? I hope so. I hope you enjoyed the weekend. I um, I had a bit of a weird. I think I'm having a bit of a weird time for some reasons, related to my uh, work and just things happening in my life. Um, but it is not something that can be rectified. So I look at it in that, like, I guess, more positive way. Uh, as I record this, I'm still yet to have my I see my therapist every Monday, and basically by the time you listen to this, because it's coming out on Tuesday, I would have spoken with my therapist about everything that's happened last week, um, since the last time we've seen each other. And it's been quite a bit because, as I mentioned before the episode, I was away, for a wedding, and it was actually such a nice time. And I had a lovely, it was just a lovely time away with my partner, and I feel so incredibly grateful for that. And but then I also was the first time when we've left Sarma and Pickle home. We had someone cut sit for us, and it was it was weird, because in one hand I really enjoyed the benefits of a one. I think we had like a king size bed, which or anyway, it was something bigger than what we usually have, and it was amazing. Yeah, it was such a good. I had such a good sleep in the hotel, but then to not have Pickle and Sarma around, it felt really strange. And I think for a little bit, it wasn't um, a long period of time, but for a little bit, I did worry whether they are gonna love me and remember me when I get back home. And I don't know. I feel like they kind of did, though. I'll be honest. And also, I feel like they were um, a bit more. What's the word? Emotional? No, no, emotional. That's not a good word. They were a bit more, you know, friendlier than when we left them. At least Pickle. Pickle, she hates being touched. She hates, pets. She does like it, but she only likes it in the morning. It's on her own schedule. Like she doesn't comply to anyone else's rules, which I respect. I respect a lot. And I think if I were Pickle, I would have gone through school and bullying and stuff like that so much better than I did. But yeah, I feel like recently she's been a bit more open to affection. Affection, that's the word I was looking for. They've been more affectionate, especially Pickle, and then Sarma. She's just always cute and adorable, and yeah, she just stayed like that. We got a laser pointer for the first time. Uh, I used to play. I mean, not I have owned laser pointers in the past. All I'm saying is that we've just got one now, um, and we start like playing around with the cats, and they are loving it. Yeah, they love running around for that little red dot. But that's pretty much what happened, and again, without going through details. But I would say that I've also had a couple of very powerful conversations with people this week. Some for the future episode of the podcast, some just private conversations about addiction or suicidal ideations and things like that. And it was just interesting to see how I felt after, or like to feel the things I felt after, and to see that I sometimes still struggle with my thoughts, and sometimes it's hard to just not, to just not give in to your, to my either cravings, or to my intrusive thoughts. But in the same hand, it's just it's in a very weird and almost like twisted way. I find it fascinating because I'm like, oh my god, how, why is this happening, and how long is this going to happen for, and to what extent can I take this thought. I was a bit annoyed a couple of days ago by the fact that yeah, in the same time I was very, grateful for everything happening to me now, and for my partner, and for the good things that are happening to me, and for my partner and my pets. And then, but in the same hand, I was annoyed because I thought that I can't just leave them now. I can't just not be, anyway. It's this sort of things that are happening, which I'm quite excited to bring tomorrow and speak with my therapist about. And look, this week's episode is a good one. It's with Steve. He's a comedian. He's also a vlogger, and he loves hiking. Is going to basically talk about it, and then you'll also see some of his. You can basically see some of his work on his YouTube if you check the bio. And look, we had a quite an interesting conversation. I think it was good, if I say so myself, and it was quite interesting because again, it's not the I guess the traditional. Actually, I think it is. I think to an extent, some of us are loners to an extent, or are people who actually enjoy doing things on our own, as well as sharing our comedy with other people. And it was just fascinating to hear his input and to talk about his views. And in the same respect, he's a very clever guy. So it was quite fascinating to get to some of the topics that we've covered. So I'll let you basically make your own opinion, and make what you will from it. And yeah, thanks for listening. We'll catch up before or after the interview, but before we wrap it up. Bye. Okay, so Steve, how's it going?
It's going fine. Thank you for having in your house. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's yeah. What was the journey like?
A little bit messy. The train stopped at South Croydon. Before that was cancelled in Portsmouth. I had to switch a bit, so it was a bit messy. But that's UK public transport, so yeah, you get used to it after a while.
So how long you've been in UK for now?
Around 6 years.
6 years, and you've done, because you're a comedian based in Portsmouth now.
Yes.
Were you always in Portsmouth?
When I start comedy, yes, I started in Portsmouth.
And but then when you first, and where are you from?
I'm from Portugal.
Which part?
The north near, if it helps describing it geographically, near Galicia, near the like the north
the
of
Spain?
of Spain. Yes,
Mm.
so very near Spain.
And what did you do comedy in Portugal as well?
I did last summer, and also like a great break for what I said about Spain. I'm also trying to do in Spanish. So yeah, I do in Portuguese, trying to do in Spanish, and I do in English. So trying to do the three language.
Oh wow! How do you do it? Like, how do you write it, or like how do you write the same thing in this, or is it just like ideas that come in different? Like, do you have a different set almost, or?
Yeah, in English is more like word playing because it's easier to play with the words. Every word means so much stuff that you can play with it, and it's fun like that structure of sentences and other way that words play in a normal conversation. So it's easy to manipulate that, but in Portuguese and Spanish, from what I know, is especially Portuguese, one word means one word, so it's difficult to have that word playing. So
No
when I
way.
do, or I did the Portuguese one, I went for more like a storytelling type of thing, like telling about or sharing about my experiences as a foreigner abroad, that sort of traveling.
Okay, and then when you did because when you did the Portuguese comedy set, you did it in Portugal. Or did you do it at Portuguese nights in the UK?
No, I did in Portugal. I travel on purpose to do in Portugal and to try to visit my family because was a while that I spent that much time in Portugal since I moved here, and I was like, I want to spend time with them. They're not gonna be here with us for that long of a period, so it's just like let's just have time and at the same time try to get some sets going.
Oh, interesting. And what did you do it in the big cities, or did you do it around where you're from? Because are you from a big city, or is you
No,
no?
like a remote part of Portugal. So there is no comedy or almost no comedy. They did one thing that I hope they continue, that they did like sort of a comedy festival, which they invite me because I was there in my
No
town
way.
and I opened for like big stars in Portugal. I was like, I never dreamt of being in the same stage as these people that I grew up watching. And that was incredible. But
How did you go?
I was outdoors, so that replies to a lot. Not the best. Outdoor gigs are not the best. So it was still fun for like that experience of hanging out with
Nice.
comedians, but outdoor gigs is rare that it goes okay.
Yeah, no, it's really tough. I think.
So, and especially if it's like a remote part or a part of Portugal, for example, that it doesn't have a lot of knowledge in comedy. They want to do the best, but they don't know how to do a proper
Right,
thing.
right, right,
Because
right,
it's
right.
like they had a bar open at the same time that the comedy was going, so people went more for the drinks than really listening to the.
Fair.
So there was a lot of things going on, but still was fun. It was fun to do in my hometown. I had a lot of people just coming to see me because they were like, I really want to see what he's doing. So not for, I don't think was for like, oh okay, this might be funny, but was like more to criticize. Then was like, if this guy is shit, we're gonna tell him that he's shit because we know him his entire life. So it was a bit like that, and it was fun.
That's actually what something I'm curious about. What was it like to do it in front of? Because were you always like a funny person, or were you always like a creative person growing up? So I basically the question is, were like the people around you going like, "Oh, Steve's doing comedy. Fair enough." It's kind of like I saw that coming, or
No, no, it wasn't that. I'm an introvert person, so and that's why before this, like before recording, I said that I enjoy hiking and that sort of look because I still enjoy like having that space for myself where I'm alone, where I can be with nature, and even family members got out of surprise when I said, "Oh, I'm gonna do comedy." So I got people when there was one people that I still remember from my family that I said, "Oh, I'm gonna try to do comedy. I'm gonna be," and they said, "That's the best joke that you ever tell, or you will be ever able to tell." And I'm like, I don't know if I feel offended or not with that. So it's a bit of okay, that introvert person that then it starts to talk in public and is like, oh, okay, that's weird.
but I think it's a combination with because I've been told I think apparently you can be both, or like I think my actual like INPT, the one of those like personality
Mm,
traits things. Actually, mine goes under as introvert
mm,
as well, which is interesting. But I agree with you. I feel like my social batteries are very limited at many times. So I'm in a similar position where although and I feel like I enjoy public speaking when I do comedy shows, but I actually don't enjoy being in the center of like attention. Like for example, when it's like a if it's like my birthday, I don't like
mm.
to be like the person to be sang happy birthday to. I don't like it if in like I don't know work meetings. Even if someone goes like, "Oh, you did really well," I'm like, "Oh, that makes me feel very
Yeah.
uncomfortable." So
I can fake it like even on networking and entertainment is all about networking. I can create that persona of like I'm gonna fake it just to get the contact, but also I enjoy that time of like just leave me alone. I just want to be with myself, reading books, just so there is those aspect of
yeah,
like I can pretend to be someone, I can be a character, whatever you want, but also I enjoy being on my own, alone in my space with my thoughts.
yeah, no. So again, I think it's very fair, no? Because I get to that point. I think everyone should, and I think it's actually it's a much healthier approach, right? To kind of go, yeah, you can only do so much in regards to, again, like anything. So to accept the fact that, yeah, you enjoy. So because so being like in Portugal and growing up in, like, as you saying, was it like a city, or is it like a rural area?
The second one, rural.
Rural,
Yeah.
right? Okay, and then you came to UK, and in here you lived, because you were saying you started comedy in Portsmouth.
But I lived for a bit in Atfield.
Where is that?
It's a bit more north than where you are recording. That is like still near London, but not is like outside near
How did
Watford.
you get? Oh, okay. How did you get? What made you come to UK in the first place?
Studying
What did you study?
law.
No
I started
way.
by studying law, and then I thought this is not for me. I'm not that I was bad. I just didn't enjoy because I was like, I don't. This is too much to remember. And then I was like, maybe I'm good with computers, and I went to Portsmouth to study like cybersecurity. So yeah,
How
that
was that? Is that something you're still passionate about, or like you still?
I think I'm more passionate about comedy than the cybersecurity. I know how to do stuff, but it's more of the same, and I feel that is boring doing the stuff all over.
It makes sense. I actually studied. I started doing cybersecurity, and I gave up like 2 months in. I think I managed to get, because I started through Open University,
Mm,
and then they already sent me the books and everything, and I was meant to start, and I gave up throughout that like period, because I did some
mm,
courses on my own, and I was like, oh, this sounds good, and then I saw like the more in depth, and I was like, ah, this is boring, and I have this thing where which is really weird, because it happens the same when I do coding.
mm.
I I fall asleep. Like,
Fair
I
enough.
can't keep myself up.
Yeah. I just I do the stuff. I'm like I'm so depressed with this. I can do this, but it's like my will to live is low. It's below
Oh
zero.
God.
So yeah, because when especially like computer wise areas, it's just like, or do you like it really, or is this like when you're doing that stuff and you hate every minute of doing such thing? So
I think interesting, because I was thinking about this the other day, where I feel like it feels like now computers are this thing where because everyone keeps on telling you that, oh, you gotta do it, like this is the future, almost. And then but then you almost you're forced into having to give it a try, and then some what most I think most people do, or at least a lot of people, is that they just go, oh, I gotta do it.
yeah,
It's more like, it's not I enjoy doing it. It's more like I must do this because this is
yeah,
the future. And I think in 20 years something else is like, I think even now, look at AI. Everyone thinks that, oh, now we need to do like data analysis, like that's
yeah,
a job that's considered for the future.
yeah.
And I think it's based on the fact that now, again, we use it a lot. But then I think in like 5 years from now, loads of people who did data analysis or who do data analysis are going to be like, oh, actually, I hated this all along.
And like again, it's because when I mentioned like, oh, I'm trying to be full time comedian, most people think that want to be full time comedian because I suck at the job of doing like cybersecurity. Because like, oh, that's where the money is. It's not. No, that's not the case. It's just like even now I can give an example, or I can talk about that recently on finish my degree. I tutored most of my colleagues, my friends.
Oh, wow.
I did tutoring to them. I was like, I can do the stuff. I just don't find them using. It's just like, oh, zeros and ones. Nice, I guess. Good for you. I just can't uh, feel like the stuff of like, oh, I really. And I had like a couple of offers, even in Portugal, of like, do you want to work for us after university is done? I'm like, no, no, thank you. I just want to go to London or somewhere else that I can try to do comedy. And I don't care about the money. I just want to do comedy, make people laugh. So it's always that fascination that people have of like, oh, money is everything. I don't think it's everything. It is a mean or resources to get to somewhere, but not.
True. And I think it's to the not true, but not true in the sense that oh that's the ultimate rule. It's more of a I'm on the same wavelength, but I feel like yeah, it's a means to actually again make enough to I that's how I see it anyways.
Yeah.
Like to make enough so that I don't have to have worries or to an extent,
Yeah.
but then ultimately I wouldn't give my time more time than necessary to the money if that makes sense.
Yeah. And also like goes back to what I was saying about like the comedy part and getting here to London trying to it's just I mean I hate the fact that people need to live in this state of constant worry of oh yeah you need to do something but something that pays really well but then you are depressed about it and I'm like no I prefer to be happy or at least have some sort of happiness but still do something that I quite enjoy.
That's fair enough. The reason why we're laughing, like giggling in between, by the way, is because Pikal and Sarma are just like wandering around. And Steve, do you want to tell us how many cats you have as well?
Yeah,
I didn't know we have a cat fan club in the house.
no, in Portugal at the moment, I have seven, so it's nice. I love cats, so it's interesting.
So that yeah, that's the kid giggling from that's the reason why you hear us giggling sometimes for no reason. But going back to yeah, I feel for you because I think it's one of those things. I feel for you. I feel similar to you, where you get. I think I've seen some of these posts about how get a job that like makes you happy, not that makes you need like mental like therapy sort of thing. Which again, I love. I do therapy by obviously I think that it's true it's something you have to find the balance and I
Yeah,
feel like I'm in a similar position where I know comedy is what I want to do. I know that this is where my heart is and I'm actually very I don't know how you feel about it but I'm actually really glad I found it
yeah,
because
me
I
too.
started and not finished so many things in my life
Yeah.
and then I kind of got comedy and I was like oh I don't like parts of it but I would still not want to not do it.
Yeah, it's the same because that's what I was trying to like segment back. I was like, when I was studying, like the first times that I was studying cybersecurity, I was like, oh, this is my destiny. I was thinking on that. I was like, maybe that's like I'm good at this. I always been good with computers. Every time that someone would need something, I would fix for them. Even not having like knowledge of studying university, I would just be that person of like, oh, you need this. Okay, I will try to fix it. So but then when you find comedy, it's just like, no, I truly love this. I never felt like this before, and I did a lot of stuff in the past too. That I try different areas. For a while, I was like football player, like I play for the whole like the youth teams. Then I went for like to be a coach, and at that point, I thought maybe this is my career. I will be like a football manager. But it's like looking back at the stuff of like I think I was pretending that I really enjoyed that because I was like I didn't felt welcome in that area, in that
Interesting.
community. I was just like I know I can be good at something if I put efforts into it, but I didn't felt that I was welcome in those.
I actually funny enough, I have applied for the FA licensing. I was actually going to go for the courses as well because I thought I enjoyed that, and I love watching sports. Do you follow any football clubs?
I I did now I don't anymore because I still have that part of me that is like I can't watch football without being all analytic about it. So
Oh,
I just can't watch for fun. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm just stopping.
I find fun in that though because I do enjoy watching it and going like I actually I'm such a fan of the XG,
Yeah.
like basically like looking for the statistics and seeing like the conversion chances and the score. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't. It's like I was the person that would wake up and spend the whole day watching like Argentinian clubs, like Brazilian. I would like watch all the random leagues that no one is watching. And there's like after a while, it's just like, no, I truly love comedy and I want to dedicate my life to like try to understand what I can do in terms of content and not just football.
Right, 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 right.
Because after a while, it's just like football, it takes a lot of your time
It
into
does.
it. So it's like, yeah, I just I don't mind going to games like live. It's interesting, but no, I just like watching in front of a computer. Is like, no, I'm just gonna work on a script for a vlog or anything else. I just
How's the how long when did you start vlogging?
4 years before comedy.
Before, so and then now that's actually a good like way to go to delve into that. Where so you've done how did you get into vlogging?
I did because I always enjoy like traveling, and again, when I travel to the UK, I travel alone, so I always enjoy having some memory of those things that
Okay,
happened to me.
okay,
So I would do like sketches or something, and then like the stuff that I would do would get to vlogging eventually. So that was kind of the transition of like, oh
interesting.
yeah, that's I love traveling. Like this stuff is fun. Also, I can show like the behind the scenes of comedy because people just think most of the times that it's just you go there and you rant, and showing that part of like, you're writing or you're doing
Yeah,
this is different and gives people a different perspective.
and then how did you get to try and do comedy?
It was friends that told me, it's like, you're funny, just try, you love watching stand up so much, just give it a try. But I never thought that I would like, because when I started creating content, I thought of doing stand up, but the pandemic happened. So I kind of put that on pause, and I'm like, I'm just going to record sketches and that sort of stuff with a friend. And then I was like, because to be fun, like a fun curiosity was like, I was to start doing in Portuguese. And probably if I start in Portuguese, I would never start in English. I think I would guess that I would just like start content in just Portuguese and just stay around
Ah,
that. But because of the pandemic happened, I was like, oh, I wanted to try something, but I don't know if I will be able to tell a joke in English. So that was, I was like, let me give it a try. If not, if I don't froze it on stage, I'll be fine. So that was the goal. Was not even if you're funny. No, no. If you don't froze on stage, you'll be fine. So
yeah,
that,
no, it's fair enough.
and yeah, the first performance went bad, but I don't know why I booked like three more after the first performance, and I'm like, oh, I gave my word. So
Yeah,
after,
you gotta go. You gotta show up for
yeah,
it now.
so after that, I enjoyed like performing and
It makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, it's I think it's such an interesting thing when you look about like the baby steps behind it because it's usually about like getting used to being on stage, getting used to having the mic, getting used to doing all these things, and then you slowly get to where you because I feel like when you start watching comedy or like when you watch comedy it's you because you see the finite
yeah.
product and then you don't actually you think oh yeah you can like everyone can just go on stage and have the same stage presence that so and so has and then you actually go and do it and you're like oh that's not actually how it works.
I truly thought that I was like, I'm not prepared to be. This is so like, because I think I mentioned this before we start recording. Like in Portugal, it's still very brand new comedy. It's not the thing as like the UK that has a
Right.
lot of history. So everything that I would see would be like, oh, okay, this person does. But I never thought of like, oh, when you start like with 20 people or something. I was like, oh, you start with 1,000? Jesus Christ, that's I imagine that like as
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
you start with 1,000. I'm like, nah, that's I'm too introvert for that.
yeah.
So when I went to like an open mind that I found the comedy place in Portsmouth, I was like, oh, this is what like a mature comedy is. I didn't know. I think I cannot be worse than that guy. So so like you get like a little bit, you watch some open mics and there's like, I think I can be better a bit than certain person or because you see a lot of shit on the open mic, so that gives you a little bit of hope of like, oh, I think I can write something better than that. Like that's
Yeah, that it's a good bar to set yourself, and then to move on or like to try onto different things. And what are you doing? Because so you started in English in Portsmouth,
yeah.
and then but then beforehand, were you saying that you do write stuff in Portuguese, or are
I
you looking now, or like yeah, what's I guess if it was like an well, the ideal scenario for you, what would you do next?
I just want to focus on like the English, but I want to do like as I said, the Portuguese and the Spanish, but like more as a side hustle,
Mm,
not as a main. It's just like, oh, I want to take little time off from the English and just like try some ideas in Portuguese, like kind of open mics in Portuguese or English,
mm-hmm.
but not going into the professional. Just trying a bit because
Playing around.
yeah, because some even in the Portuguese sets that I did, some ideas that I did there I ended up translating to my actual sets now
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, oh, if people are interested in the sort of stories, maybe if I can convert in a way in the English way, maybe it makes sense and people are interested too.
Interesting. I found that a while back when I did I had the opportunity, which was quite wonderful, to open up for a professional, like a Romanian comic, doing his like Romanian show in England, and yeah, and I tried this bit in Romanian, and I was like, oh, actually, okay, it's going well. And then the thing is, beforehand, I used to try the bit in English anyway, and it didn't work.
Mm.
But then since I've done it in Romanian, and then I rethought about it in English, now it's a part of my like standard set. So it kind of like it just fell in place right just because I had the opportunity to think in both languages. Like I don't know
Yeah.
whether that's the reason, but
And also, like, as I think I told in the podcast, is like when I was doing in Portuguese, I went more on the storytelling. So I was never comfortable with storytelling because I was like, who cares about my stories? So I just like you have that feeling of like, who cares about this? I don't think I'm anyone to like, oh, my life experience. So when I told some stories in Portuguese, I was like, oh, people really care. People are really interested. So maybe I can try to be more comfortable because not every crowd will understand word playing. So you need to adapt and have different sort of sets for every part you play, especially if you want to
interesting.
get into professional. Because you just don't get at the beginnings, you just don't get your crowd straight away.
Mhm.
So it's just like, oh, I will go this place and that place, and I need to understand what I can play with and what I cannot. I hope
Right.
that makes sense.
It does. It does. And I'm just curious on what how did you come across so basically you're the way you would, I guess, treat a comedy show now, are you trying to like gauge what's happening in the room, or like what's the room into before you go on?
I just try to understand like the social backgrounds of the places to try to understand this, like, can I be like more intellectual here, or do I need to go more into storytelling, something that is more.
Oh,
Because, like, for example, Cambridge, I know I played there a couple of times, and I
right.
know that people are like intellectual.
Uh-huh.
People are there that's like, oh, we really want to hear smart jokes. It's like, okay, that's the right spot. But for example, if I perform in Portsmouth, those intellectual jokes,
Yeah.
you don't get the same reaction. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? So it's that
Oh,
sort of
okay, okay. Interesting. That's because I didn't I usually kind of, yeah, the way I go in when I go on stage, I'm trying to gauge from people before me, if I'm not the first, if I'm not opening, to see what people like. And but then I usually have the same set, and I
mm,
just allow it to like change when I'm on stage,
mm,
like, oh, okay, so I guess you're not into this, and I would like make the observation and then move on. But that's very interesting. I feel like you still, though, because you were saying earlier, and I can see how you still have a very what do you call, like, analytical sort of
yeah.
thinking. And it sounds like you're putting a lot of thought on. But then, how about the set itself? Like, do you actually do you prepare your? Do you know what you're gonna say before you go on stage, or are
Yeah,
you
I
making it up on the spot?
no, I try more and more to give a space on the beginning to like improvise, because that way gives the audience the idea that you are aware of the background there, and then
Okay.
they can follow the jokes. And normally beforehand, I have more or less prepared like the structure that I'm gonna tell, but I give that space in the beginning to like, oh, I will tell this that is just specific to this place that
Right.
is unique, to then have the crowd on board to whatever I want to say.
Interesting.
But like I give the example of recently, I did two different sets in a space of 2 days, and one was more like cat related, like that sort of soft play.
Right.
And another one was more morbid, were more about depression, more about, and it's like not every crowd will want to hear about that, suicide, that sort of things. So
Mm.
you need to understand where to play which.
How did you? That's very interesting then, because I'm going to ask you, how do you? What? How do you? What made you like? How do you treat, like, I guess, mental health, especially like when you talk about it on stage, or when you try to like put it into comedy? What made you, like, I guess, like, want to work with it? Because I'm asking you because I found from my own
Mm,
like set or like experiences that, like you said, it's really hard to get in. So I only have one reference
mm,
about, but it's actually hit around a bit about bees,
mm.
where I actually talk about mental health.
Oh, okay.
But then besides of that, I find it quite challenging, because, like you said, again, it's a very real, and I feel like, especially at like for some reason, in the climate that we live in, because again, it's still quite new, and like mental health is a taboo thing.
Yeah,
So I think so anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite hard to address. So how do you, like, what made you want to get around there? Like, how do you treat it?
I try to treat as wordplay if I find something amusing. And I can give an example of something that is in my first special, my short special, that was playing around the search of suicide. And the first thing that appears is the helpline. And I'm like, if someone is trying to help you, isn't that euthanasia? So it's like trying to play around those words of like, oh, okay, I found this. How can I transform like a serious matter in something funny? Like
Okay, okay.
those.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that, because I remember the first time when I searched myself, and then yeah, it was this thing. I think actually my question, if you don't, because yeah, trigger warning for anyone listening, but basically I'm referring to the time when I basically I searched my search on the web browser, which I think was Google at the time, was what pills can I use to overdose on. And because I remember, again, it was a really like a rough time, and
Yeah.
again, like, I think people listening, they know, because I talked about it before, that I had like different ways, like different episodes throughout my life. But then again, yeah, at one point, I think maybe I think it was actually during the during lockdown, where that was the question. And yeah, the first thing that came out was, hey, it sounds like you might want to speak with a professional. And I was like, well, whatever, but yeah, it was quite interesting.
Yeah, I always like I self-diagnosed with like depression. I was like 14 or 13. I'm 26 now, so it's like it's been a long journey of me trying to surpass with therapy, with everything. And plus, like, I always felt outside of the norm because like I'm germophobic. I'm like I have fear of diseases, constantly fear of diseases. And it's like, yeah, I need to make fun of this because if not, I will just burn out with all of this
Wow.
thing. Because I have some funny episodes that I was like, man, if I don't make fun of this, this is depressing. I'm like, I'm having already a meltdown of like, I might die from this. And it's like nothing out of serious, but it's just like, oh, I touched this. So it's, I find that it's like helpful to joke around those things if I can.
But this is actually one of the, because I think I have some of the sort of, not I so basically it's a part of my set.
Mm,
It's a thing about like my mom lying to me about like certain, like how I think, if from like how babies are made
mm,
to, oh, if you I think I was talking with my partner yesterday that I didn't eat seeds for like, I think since I was a teenager, like in probably like 14 or 15. Like, I used to eat grapes by
mm,
biting into the grapes, taking the seeds out, because when I was much younger, my mom told me not to eat watermelon seeds because they grow watermelons in your body. And I believed in that, and I was like, oh man. But then I was like, look, if watermelons do that, then all sort of seeds can do it.
yeah.
So like I was scared of eating tomatoes, which actually now got me into having a mild tomato allergy, I think, because I haven't eaten for such a long time. And yeah, no, it's quite wild. But then I was wondering, in your case, because do you address it then? Do you talk about like
I'm trying, but again, it's like that stuff that it's still a constant battle of trying to find a way that is funny, but still crowds understand because most of it will be hard to relate. Is like, oh,
Yeah.
that. So I just try to understand what I can w-
You
play
know,
around.
one something that I'm really curious about, because I grew up with when so a bit of backstory. My mom my mom found a lump on her
Mm.
breast when I was maybe like 9 or 10. So then, because she was like in treatment for like the thing that they do like before breast cancer,
Mhm.
to like try and preempt that. She was gone for almost like 3 or 4 months. So I had to spend basically like the whole time with my grandparents who live in a farm.
Mm.
And what was it like? Like, when did you find out that you were a germaphobe? And what was it like? I guess to grow up in a rural area, because I know, like, to me it was very hard because I was like scared of touching anything. Because I remember my mom would go, "Don't touch open wires," or like, if you see like a piece of wood can give you you can get like a ick or that
Yeah, yeah.
thing, and then you're gonna have to like cut your fingers or whatever. And I was in constant fear. I remember that summer.
I just never had anyone tell me that like don't touch the stuff. I wouldn't touch the stuff. I'm like, my mom tells me sorry when I was like really young,
Yeah.
and he was like, oh, play with this like every kid. I'm like, no, that's disgusting. So it's I always been like that, but like with the time going by, I was like, oh, that's not normal. Okay, fair enough. So you realize when you get out of like the spectrum that you
Yeah.
live, it's like, oh, people are not like this. People don't, for example, in terms of you have the spoons or whatever, I'm like, I like to have in certain order. If someone touches that, that's gonna mess my head. So I have OCD as well. So it's like everything in just one person. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is awful. Because I had one, like, for a while I lived with some of my best friends,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
they just to mess with me, they will just switch the order of
Oh my
the stuff,
god.
and I'm like, I hate you so much, but at the same time I respect you because you're my friends and I know you're just joking. But that stuff of like having stuff out of order, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
everything in just once. I'm like, I need to make fun of this. If not, this is just is not okay.
You were saying earlier about like finding this when you were like finding like struggling with depression since you were maybe like 13 or 14, which is similar in some aspects similar to my story. I think it was around the same age. But then you were saying that you tried, like, obviously, and you were like you did therapy, you tried loads of things. Was that something that you've done in Portugal? And was it like when you were how old were you, I guess, when you first?
I tried therapy like I was on my 21 or something. So
Ah,
why
okay,
it
so still.
lasts that long? And I think by 14, I even was talking yesterday to my dad that like I saw a video about like suicide, and I'm like, I'm glad that I didn't kill myself at 14 because I really went forward with the scissors to try to cut myself,
Oh.
and I just stopped. I was just like my mom entered in the room and I start crying. I'm like, I can't bear this. This is just because I always been the even if it was in football and I was like with the popular kids, I always felt outside. I didn't felt that I belonged to the group. I got a little bit bullied in school, and I would be always alone in the library studying. And I was like, I hate this. If this is life, I hate this. So I thought for a while on killing myself, and glad that I didn't. But still, it was a process of like me improving all the time and trying to.
That's wild, man. I think it's and sorry. Thank you for sharing, by the way, and sorry to hear about that. And yeah, oh god, I think about it again when I was 40. No, I think, yeah, 14 or 13. I think it was the time when I was like I climbed the basically I climbed my window.
Mm,
Not climb because I don't want to like. But basically, I sat, like with the legs, and I was like, trying to make myself to push myself to like jump. And and now I think when you were saying it, like, it genuinely made me feel so, like, I don't know, just like sad to think about, like, when you're 13 or 14 and you think that, oh yeah, the world is like so like ahead of you, and everything, all these like beautiful things are going to happen, and all you see, it's the worst.
And when you think that the only solution is suicide, is just like, it's sad that someone goes through that. That's why I try to share with every time that I go on a podcast or even my comment that is like, yeah, suicide is not an option. Just reach to people. Just try to be open about it, because again, it's sad to think that at one point I'm like, oh, this is the only option available. And yeah, looking back, I was like, after that, I met one of my best friends that is still until today's day is
No way.
and this is one of the people that make me, apart from my parents, that make me go to Portugal once in a while to visit her. And there's like, yeah, I'm glad that I didn't, because I met incredible people even in the UK. And but it's that thought of like, I never belonged here. And if you go to youth, it's just like, oh, everyone to be accepted, you need to drink, you need smoke. I'm like, no, I enjoy reading books. I don't. I feel that this is weird for me. So you live in a remote part that
Yeah.
their joy is having a drink and smoke, and I'm like, maybe I don't belong to this world. That was my thought at the time.
Wow, man, that sounds that sounds heavy. Because I think actually it's a bit different. When I was uh 15, I started having, I think around 14 to 15, I started having like a drinking problem, and I used to gamble
Mm.
as well. So I actually, I think I caved, I gave in. I was like, okay, fine. If like drinking, it's fun, let's do it. And then I'd get to the point where, yeah, I just have like a six pack in my bedroom. I used to play, because we're talking like, I used to play like football manager, or like football manager, FIFA, and Counter Strike. And I would have like cans of beer next to my PC basically, and I would like just drink them while, yeah, it got to places and times that it was absolutely like madness.
I just never found that fascinating about drinking or drugs. I'm just like, I enjoy being with myself without any of those substances. I enjoy like, if I want to have a drug, I enjoy like reading a book, non-fictional preference. That is
Uh-huh.
just like, oh, I'm having knowledge about this, instead of just like, oh, I'm gonna uh, put my thoughts into a drink or something. Like, I just don't fancy. I don't enjoy. I prefer a juice or water.
Interesting. Well, and you were always like this.
Yeah,
Wow.
because I still have family members that try every time to like, just drink a little bit of wine. I'm like, how much times did you try to convince me and nothing happened? You're not gonna take it the best. I just don't enjoy. I'll keep drinking a juice and I'm fine with it. I just don't.
Interesting.
You see people again. Maybe that's me because I enjoy like whole analytics, like you said. It's like I see all the people that when they are drunk, and I'm like, I don't think I would behave like that. I think would be worse or something. And like I enjoy having
Hmm.
control of myself,
Mm-hmm.
certain way.
Interesting. No, and that's a very good point though, because I think one of the things that I struggle with, or I think lots of people that because when I read book about other people like struggling with their addictions, is the because I actually think that there are so many different ways, and I feel like to an extent everyone, like, there are healthy
Yeah.
and non, or actually I think every sort of addiction can go to an unhealthy point, and which is the problem with, again, with, I guess, with me, like in my situation, was the problem that it goes to from being like a occasional thing to being too much.
All right.
And then it's interesting to see like other people are like, actually I'm
But I
not.
think everyone has addictions because, like, in my case, it's not drinks or drugs, but it's like fast food, that sort of stuff. And I'm trying to stop that. I'm like, I need to eat more healthy. I need to get back to exercising. But like the idea that just addiction is the drugs and alcohol, like I think fast food hurts more people than like drinks. And because if you're like, you're sad and it's like, oh, I'm gonna order this brand, and there is plenty of brands that we know, and it's like, yeah, I don't think that's healthy. It's just like, and then you eat that, and it's like you feel bad about yourself because it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
should not eat that. Certain point I'm happy, but a certain point I'm not. And it's like, yeah, I don't think.
Well, it's I think, which is actually quite interesting, because when I was doing the therapy, when I was doing DBT, I met someone who's like between other people who are basically was into running to
Mm.
the extent where it was risky for them, because they would not stop running, and then they would get like more frequent injuries, or and everyone, I think, when you most people would think, oh yeah, running is the best thing in the world. But then you're like, again, if you do it, if you don't do it in a moderation of some sort. Like I said,
Yeah.
everything can become unhealthy.
Yeah, I try to escape by go hiking or just go on a walk. But like my hiking is not the hiking that is like, oh, this is control. Most of the times I just lost in the middle of the woods. I'm like, I might be killed. If someone catch the recording, at least they can upload this somewhere. But but at least I have the recording.
Yeah,
There is one that like people can search and sorry for the shameful plug, but if you go on Stea Productions, and you probably leave the link on the description. It's like there is a couple of them that I just went raw, and I was just like, I don't trust the maps. I will go wherever I want, and then I'm in the middle of those. I'm like, yeah, I might be killed here, but whatever. Let's try to find. And it's just like it's risky. Certain parts is risky, and I'm like, yeah, I'm aware now that I shouldn't be do that, but still, it gives me some sort of pace, like doing that sort of adrenaline rush of activities. I guess.
and how far, like how long are usually the hikes that you, or like the ones that you enjoy the most? Because I know they can be from short walks too. But what are your favorite, or actually what were your favorite locations?
Portugal has a lot of nice locations, especially in the remote parts that I live. But I went on one, and again, you can check on my YouTube channel. That was 9 days in Monfortinho, which I went with friends that I met from university, like a remote place of Portugal. And while they went to like the pools, I was just
Yeah,
like, I don't like going to municipal pools. I just hate the fact that I'm gonna stay there
yeah, yeah,
in a
yeah.
tower. I'm just gonna go losing myself in the middle of the woods and trying to find my way back.
Wow.
And I didn't have the phone because my phone broke. So it's always fun trying to trust your senses. I ended up. I'm here. So
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, it's
spoiler alert.
spoiler. Yeah.
Don't watch this before
Yeah, I was gonna say like yeah, Steve is we're actually remote doing this. Is still in Portugal trying to
to get back.
trying to find his way back.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I truly enjoy that. It's like it gives me some purpose because when I get back and nothing happens, I'm like, oh, if I went through this, I can go through anything. And like, I have the goals of like doing long walks and doing like days and days of walking,
yeah.
but not ready yet, like physically not ready yet. But like one of my goals, and I don't know if I would ever accomplish that, but would be like to go from Portsmouth or surrounding areas to like Cornwall on walk.
Oh.
Like it's around 230 miles or something like that, which is around uh, almost 2 months on a walk. Like, and I'm like, I really want to do that, but I need to be in better shape. So like that sort of stuff motivates me like physically to like trying to do. And the longest walk that I've ever did was around 15 miles, which is not bad, but still far away from the
200.
230.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be constant, right?
No.
Yeah, you take breaks and you sleep at night and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I enjoy, and I still have the goal, like in a short upcoming future, of doing like 30 miles a day. So I really want to like try to push myself to.
Uh-huh.
When you say like, oh, people run and it's dangerous, like I think if you do as well, like walking for 30 miles, I think it's dangerous as well.
No, yeah, of course, again, because but yeah, I feel like there is a healthy way to do it, and like I said,
Yeah,
to get into it, to practice and
yeah.
to get in that sort of shape. But yeah, I think it is dangerous if you start walking like right now. You haven't, I guess, walked before, and now you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the end of
Yeah. And
the
normally,
map.
like per day, I try to do 10 miles every day. So it's not that bad, but still, like 10 miles is not 30. So
No.
it's still a thing of like I enjoy going for a walk and like, for example, Portsmouth. It's still a big city. Like
Mm-hmm.
I already did like the whole Portsmouth just on walk. I'm just like,
Nice.
it's fun. I go. I sometimes I try to record. Other times it's just like this is just for me, for my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put music, and I enjoy that thing. Plus, it gives me a purpose of like, oh, if I can do this, I can do anything in life. Like I said,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice. That's good, man. And I think it's important to enjoy those moments, to find the pleasure. Now I wanted to ask you from in the back of something that we talked about earlier, where you like when you struggle. I guess at the moment, if you still have any like struggles with your mental health, what's your how do you like what are your ways of helping yourself?
Normally go for a walk, long
Mm.
walks. That's my way. It's like, oh, I need that shutdown of the brain. And in a walk, I don't know why, but and you probably feel the same if you're running. Is like the brain shuts down a little bit. You don't overthink. I don't know if you feel the same when you're running.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when I'm walking, my brain just goes silent. And I'm like, I truly need that because when you are overthinking every day, every moment, I'm like, I need that meditation.
Do you take your like phone with you
I take for emergencies, but I try
to
to.
not use it?
Yeah.
Because I found that I put mine on do not disturb,
Mm.
and it helps a lot. But also, you know what I found sometimes because I feel like, oh, if I have to, like, I really say there is an email that I need to reply to or whatever, and then, or even sometimes if I am in, especially it happened at the moment where you have some uh, tough conversations with some people, or like again something hard is happening. I go on a run, and then throughout the run, I think about my reply,
Mm.
and then I can send a reply. And also, funny enough, I actually found the other day I wrote, oh, no, not the other day, but like a couple of times recently, I actually got to write a couple of new jokes on the run. Because I have an idea and I'm like, oh, let's see how I can get on with this. And then I start running. And then while I'm running, I'm thinking, oh, is this going to be okay? No. Is this going to be okay? No. And then, yeah, I think maybe on Friday, I wrote three new bits, which I think two of them worked, one
Mm.
didn't.
No.
But yeah.
No, I sometimes that piece is disturbed by like I see something very weird. I'm like, yeah, I need to write this on the phone and then work that later on. I had a couple of things that I said that I'm like, this is too bizarre to not take advantage of the situation and try to make on something funny. Because when you do like comedy that is a little bit abstract, word playing, that sort of stuff is like anything can be acceptable, even those circumstances, and people might think that's like a fictional thing, and I'm like, that's fine for me. I can make something fictional with that and create something. So when that happens, I try to, that's again with the phone. I try to take the phone and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna write like two or three lines on it,
Hmm.
and then I will, when I have time, I will write the proper joke.
I'm in a similar aspect where I feel like so when the year started, I said I'm going to write 10 jokes a day.
Mm.
Then he went to 10 ideas a day because most of them weren't jokes. But then now I got to the point where I just try to write
Mm.
something. Like I put at least 15 minutes aside on a day
Mm.
to either go through old stuff, because then I've noticed that because I have like a 50 minutes timer,
Mm.
and then I read through some old jokes, then something new might come up,
Mm.
or I might be able to fix the other stuff, and then usually I actually spend more than that 15 minutes that I put in. But it's kind of like, me and my therapist were talking about, like, setting up like those like more realistic
Mm.
goals, where she had a very interesting analogy about, like, oh, just try to hoover a room, and then the next day you'll hoover the other one. I was like, I'm not gonna hoover 2 days in a row, like, no chance. But then it makes you put a hoover
Mm.
on, and yeah, I was like, I think I wrote it down probably from the last therapy session. I was like, what kind of lunatic just go, like, imagine if you live like in a shared house and you have like 5 beds,
Mm.
and then you're like, oh, every single one of your flatmates is gonna hoover the bedroom in a different day. That's a whole week of hoovering.
Fair enough. That's
Yeah.
funny. That's interesting.
Well, it gets there, but I feel like, you were saying something earlier, which I actually agree with, where it's like you can make, I think almost anything can be made relatable in one way or another.
Mm.
Although, like, some of the things that I come up with are ridiculous, I think, and they are fiction,
Yeah.
but you attach it to something that is real. You're like, you attach it to something that people can relate to,
Yeah.
and then, because like the whole bit I was saying about like my mom lying to me, because everyone had their like
Yeah.
parents lie to them. It's just that I then go to like, oh, this is the extent that
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
mom went to. But everyone is kind of been there, everyone is kind of thought of these things. So I had this now recently where you as a cat father as well. I think I sometimes I wonder the other like last week
Mm.
whether the cats are what's the word? So I wondered whether my kittens are suspecting me
Hmm.
of using their litter boxes when they are asleep, because they are like,
Interesting.
because like they must think like, where does this guy like
Yeah.
shit and pee, because like they don't see me, scoop like
Yeah.
anything. And then sometimes, because like every time you see them like giving me a dirty look, I'm like,
Okay.
is that when they think that I've used their litter box?
Fair enough. That's interesting perspective. Yeah. No, but in terms of writing, you mentioned a point that to every new comedian that I came across on the circuit, and sometimes they ask me for tips, it's just like I'm not the best example when it comes to writing because I write a lot, and not everyone writes a lot. You don't need to write like 30 minutes of new material every week. So I write a lot, but also like I give the space of if that's good or not, and I throw away most of it. So I write new stuff, I throw away. I write new stuff, I throw away. So I have this process of writing a lot, and then I see the stuff, and I'm like, this is shit. This is not going anywhere.
When Okay, question on that.
Yeah.
When you throw it away, do you throw, as in like, you throw everything away, or do you just like put the idea on a side, but you might go back to it later?
I just have like every idea on a notebook. So when I write like on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is still on the notebook. I just like the writing of that. I'm like, I'm just not gonna put effort onto this. Just
And
this doesn't work. I will try to see the notebook in upcoming months, and if I can come with something nice, but I don't get attached to the joke.
interesting, because I think I'm in a similar. Well, actually, I write to do like handwriting, and I always carry a notebook with me.
Mm,
There is one on the table, there. And some once in a while, that's what I was saying. Like in the days where I don't feel like I've got any material,
mm,
or like I've got nothing, because I actually think that's a good practice, because I remember, I think it might have been from Jerry Seinfeld or something like that, where he was like, no, you got to write every day, because the thing is, from like 100 thoughts, probably
yeah,
two are gonna be
yeah.
funny. But then, in order to find those two funny
You
ones, because
need
I
to
think,
write.
yeah, that's it. He had the book Is It Something? Have you heard of it? Or
I've heard about it. Yeah.
so in Is It Something? I think he mentioned this about how he had a theory that, when you don't kind of like spit out the idea from
Mm,
your brain, you're almost like, you have to think it as like it's a flow, and then that idea, it just blocks
mm,
the flow, and then you have to get rid of it, as in like, you have to write, or yeah, I have to express it, so then you allow room for the next idea to come up.
yeah.
And yeah, that's how I see it. So actually, I think it's a wonderful practice.
Yeah, it's not, I don't go by the rule of like, oh, I need to write because that, I just, if I wouldn't be doing stand up, I would probably write for someone. I have that mindset of like a writer.
Mm-hmm.
So I can write a lot of jokes. You give me a topic, I can write a lot of jokes. And then maybe from those jokes, most of them are shit. That's that's the
That's just
truth.
the way it is. Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I have some stuff that is like, yeah, this is just me being annoyed at something. This doesn't really have a joke. This is just me being pissed at this because this is not made the way that I believe to be made. So it's like, yeah, that's not gonna work. Or when I have like jokes that are very complex, I'm like, I don't think people are in my brain to understand this. This is super funny, but it's just like difficult to translate at that point. Like the
And
idea.
how do you treat that?
I just let them aside. I'm like, if one day I'm able to write nice, if I know some comedian friend that can write something on that, I'm like, just take the premise. I have too much ideas. I'll be fine without that one.
Hmm.
So I had like a friend in comedy once that I was just like googling weird facts. I
Mm.
was bored at the job. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing my job. They don't pay me enough for that. And I was googling weird facts, and I came across that like goats have accents, and I'm like, oh, this guy is good at impressions. I can't do that, or I could do that, but I don't want to. So I just like send them that. I'm like, oh, just do whatever with that. So every time that I feel that is like, oh, I can't use this or this, it will not go well. I'm like, oh, if I know someone that might use this, I will just let them have it. I just have too much stuff that I can work on.
Fair enough. Well, now before we depart, I just want to ask you, where do people find your? If you want to tell us, where do people find your work? where are you most like yeah, where do you keep again people up to date? What I guess social media platform, or what platforms you use the most to stay in touch with your audience, if you do that, and then whether there is something exciting coming up this summer or anything that they or again just let them know where to find you, and then they'll see everything that's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, as I said, like most of my content is on my YouTube, and you probably will have the link below. And then from that, in the description, you can find all the links from my social media. If you want to reach to me, just message through email or even any social media. I will try to see it and reply. But yeah, my work, most of it is just on YouTube. I don't truly enjoy working on short content. So it's just like every time that I want to create something, I'm like, I want to create a long story that this excites me. Short content, I'm like, I don't truly find fascinating. It's just
Yeah.
like I can put clips of like those long walks or those stuff, but I'm like, yeah, I don't truly find joy. So everything goes on YouTube. I'm If you follow the rest of the social medias, I will announce like the podcast I'm doing or the projects I will be doing with collabs or just alone. I recently launched before this podcast. I recently launched another short special. It was recorded near Brighton, and I was like, yeah, this is a material that I've been doing in and off for like 3 years of my career. I'm sick of it. You guys can watch it. Feel free. I'm not doing it anymore. I hate that material. I don't find funny. It's just like it's those materials that I'm like, I know it works. Everyone loves it. Everywhere that I go, people is like, oh, just do this and that, and I'm like, I can't stand this joke. I hate myself for writing the joke. So yeah, just watch it, have fun. There is the other one, the first one that I recorded as well. That it's more morbid than the first, the second one. So have a joy. Watch the rest of the content if you feel, and I will keep updated on whatever I'm doing.
Amazing. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure.
The same. Thank you.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know if this is something that happens to anyone who's doing this sort of who's doing this or anything. I think any kind of like listening to records in general, but I find it quite pleasing how I'd listen to something and then I remember how nice it was to have that conversation in person, and that's pretty much how this feels. We had a good yeah, it was a great chat, and I hope you think it's a great chat. I mean, it was a great chat, right? Like you enjoyed it. Was what you hoped for. um it definitely was what I hoped for, or it's very close. And it was just great, yeah, catching up with catching up and speaking with Steve. And then he's in London now. He lives in London, so there is no more traveling involved from Portsmouth to record a podcast episode, or um, anything for that matter, unless he has to go, somewhere outside of London for a gig. I don't know. I'm just saying that now he lives in London. It's a easier commute. But yeah, look, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you'll be back next week. And yeah, we'll see what updates I have for you next week. I'm looking forward to some things. I'm not looking forward as much to other things about this week, but ultimately it's we'll get there, and it's okay. And we gotta um stay skillful. You gotta stay skillful. So from I gotta stay skillful, you gotta stay skillful. Everybody, it's got to stay skillful. From me, Pickle, and Sarma, goodbye, and we'll catch up next week.